Hello everyone, welcome to another Geoguessr tips and tricks video. I am back. I am doing Canada today, going over each province and how to get them and in them. So, a lot of the Canadian provinces look very similar. And this one, Alberta, I have two locations. One is for more of a landscape type thing, and the other is more of things of how to figure it out. It's not landscape. The Canadian plates, some of them are easy to tell. I'll go over some of those later. But if you see red text on them, like we see red text on pretty much all of these, that's Alberta for Alberta. And also over here we have a bollard, black, white, black, and then the rest of the bollard. That you see in two provinces, Alberta and Northwest Territory. I'll be going over the NWT one later, but if you see this bollard, you are in Alberta, specifically this one. Okay, here in Alberta again. So, like, it's kind of like, it's a straight east-west road. We're back in the grid. Some universal Canada thing. This the checkerboard sign you see in every single Canadian province that replaces the US version. That's just like the arrows that you also see in Quebec. This is the Canadian version. And here we have the Albertan bollard again. But yeah, Alberta, unlike Saskatchewan, these southern bits are more forested. They're much more forested. So, yeah. Okay, and in Saskatchewan, this area of like southern Alberta, southern Saskatchewan, even southern Manitoba, for example, you have a grid. These grids are pretty much just north-south roads and some east-west roads. For all three. You see, in the US, it's not much curve, but in Canada, you do get more like directional roads and such. But when you see rounds just like this, it's grids like this, but no trees, nothing. And also, since there's double yellow, it looks like the United States. This looks like a standard North Dakota, Eastern Montana. So it's just gonna be the bordering provinces. Okay, back in this place. Pretty straight road that goes on for a while, so we're gonna be in the grid. And there's not many trees around. I mean, there are trees, but very sparse. And also, this just looks like the North Dakota type area. But you probably know about this, but these poles, you have two little insulators on one side, one on the other, and they alternate between every pole. You're in Saskatchewan. Pretty simple. And then here in Newfoundland, probably the easiest province to figure out, because Newfoundland and Labrador. Labrador has like one road that has coverage, which is like this, so you can easily just memorize the road. But Newfoundland, you always have the single yellow line that's not dashed as well. You always see that pretty much. It's also something that go Canada instead of the United States with. But the Canadian Shield runs pretty much this area of Canada, southern Canada. Newfoundland takes advantage of that and is like pretty much entirely the Canadian Shield. I don't really know how to explain it. I'll put a picture up for a little bit of a reference. But yeah, that mixed with these trees, easy Newfie every time. Usually when I see like the Canadian Shield with a little bit of elevation, single yellow, and water, because most of the roads in Newfoundland are on the coast. Pretty simple. With the western type coast, maybe like here or something. In Newfoundland again, another very mountainous state, obviously. The most mountainous states are British Columbia, definitely. Newfoundland's pretty mountainous. This part of Quebec's pretty mountainous. But this part of Quebec is more elevated of like the roads, and the trees are more tall and green, not like this. But there's a lot of room, and this is more shield-like. This is also the red road. Red road you see pretty much in like New Brunswick. Definitely Prince Edward Island, Nova Scotia, and Newfoundland. Not the best hint, but yeah. At the same time, the single yellow line completely goes all the way through. Very Newfoundland-like. If you haven't heard, whenever I hit 500 subscribers on my channel, I will make a Geoguessr tips and tricks video like this, but for the entire world. So if you want a good beginner's guide, or even somewhat advanced guide, let's hit that goal. So in Manitoba, seeing hay roll up like this is also a common thing in like Saskatchewan, Manitoba, Ontario, but that's not my point here. My point here is these poles, these trident poles. These trident poles, when you see them, think of Manitoba. That's pretty much it. And it even helps if you kind of look at a very flat area, agricultural area like this. If you're thinking Alberta, Saskatchewan, Manitoba, when you see those, and also Manitoba has a higher frequency of like the diagonal roads than the other two. You go Manitoba. Okay, this is pretty good thing. This plate's very recognizable. It's the Manitoban plate. You see green on both sides. Very simple. Here in British Columbia, the most mountainous state by far. When you see mountains, immediately think of British Columbia, but don't immediately send, because it needs to be kind of like the shield as well again. But also in British Columbia, you see the double yellow lines a lot more than in most other states, provinces I should say. So it could look kind of like the United States, more than like the other mountainous ones like Newfoundland and Quebec, where they usually have one line more of the time. Okay, back in what looks to be British Columbia, yeah. So, speed limit signs in the United States say speed limit. In Canada it says maximum, and usually it's just maximum than the number, but some provinces use the kilometers per hour thing, such as British Columbia. Ontario has the same one, but a black stripe. I think New Brunswick does as well. But with mountains like this, British Columbia, and it also says Vancouver here, but you're not always going to see that one. Okay, here what looks to be Northwest Territories, I would assume. When you see just a very straight road that goes on for a while, and it's lined up with trees, it's going to be north. It's going to be north, especially with these tall, cold trees. It's going to be north, just like anywhere in the world. You usually see like this in like Finland and Russia too. But with these dashed yellow lines, you're going to be in Canada. But roads like this are normally like northern Alberta, northern Saskatchewan, Northwest Territories, maybe even Yukon or Manitoba, Quebec, Ontario. But mainly it'd be like northern Alberta, northern Saskatchewan, Northwest Territories. So usually you would just send it. With the red road, I'd maybe go more towards like Alberta, but also the Northwest Territories does not have many roads that are covered, and this is a pretty obvious road. Should just be it's gonna be one that are near the Albertan border, because this road has coverage, the one that goes to Yellowknife has coverage, and this one out west have coverage. That's pretty much it. Okay, we see this bollard again. I said it was in Alberta or Northwest Territory. They're different. The white is not showing as much. The black strips are closer together, so you're in Northwest Territories. Also, Northwest Territories, like I said, does not have many roads, and one of the primary roads that goes to Yellowknife is full Gen 2 coverage, and is Gen 2 coverage and Northwest Territories go together well. It's a lot of it, so it's just gonna be on this. Okay, we are in Ontario. Ontario also uses a very similar grid system, except it's gonna be much more green, much more foresty, like this. You can see a ton of trees. Not as much because it's in a grid system, obviously, but I'm just going to show y'all how this area of Ontario looks, because the roads are very grid-like. Just look at these roads. It's just so many squares, so many straight roads that just go everywhere. And if you look at the coverage map, it's just lines, like how this looks. So with Ontario like this, grids, you just want to line up a road, try to find something that is kind of close, and you're probably going to be in the right area. Like this isn't bad. It was the main road, but yeah, that type of grid is much different than this one, and is more plentiful. But also, the grid here is much less spaced out than the grid up in the in Ontario. A lot of the, I'd say this is the standard Canadian round, just the dashed yellow line, these northern trees that you usually see in like Washington or like northern Michigan. It's just gonna be Canada, but there's no defining there's no defining features. And we're in that kind of the Canadian Shield, because you see there's like hills in the back, but they're not quite fully developed. Ontario's usually the spot where where I don't know where to reach and guess it in Canada, and it's usually right. But since if we're guessing Ontario, we can't really go in the grid area, so we gotta go more outside of it. Or not, but that wasn't on one of the main grid roads. It's okay, we were in Prince Edward Island. You can tell because of how red the road is. The road is red, the soil is red. just you usually send Prince Edward Island every time, and if it's not, it's gonna be one of the boardings. Okay, and another thing for Prince Edward Island is usually when you get more Prince Edward Island, you'd recognize these towns. Like in Prince Edward Island, Cavendish is here, and Stanley Bridge is here, so then you could just quickly line something up. That's north and that's west, and I'll be on this road pretty much, and then if it goes up and west, it'll be around here. Okay, the province of Nunavut. Nunavut is this massive one up here, and there's two main types of coverage. You got the capital here, which would be urban, and you have teal signs all the way around, turquoise actually, and you have sparse coverage along all of these islands. The northernmost point in the entire world is somewhere on Ellesmere Island up here. I actually don't know exactly where it is, but this one right here, you're probably fine, but probably not gonna have much luck. I think it's this actually, yeah. But yeah, it's rounds like that. You just gotta know it, pretty much. Okay, and in Nunavut, they also like to use not just English or French or whatever. They have their own unique language too, which is this. Don't know what it is. This very snowy place. This is the capital of the province on Baffin Island. You'll see a lot of turquoise signs. I could probably find one. I don't actually see one, but the buildings are also very unique colored. But yeah, this city is very easy to figure out. Gentoo coverage a lot in Canada, but this is a super northern road. In like Yukon or like northern British Columbia, you usually have a lot of Gentoo coverage like this. Very cold climate, and these trees, I shouldn't even call them trees. Trees, bushes, this vegetation is very plentiful there. Very skinny, not very tall, but like, I think it's decently tall. But they're far away trees. With this Gentoo, honestly, that gives me more of an olive green. But yeah, I'd say olive green is a good. This is like old ice and coverage has this color. But yeah, most roads in Yukon have this. Yukon, these plates, they have blue. You'll see a blue strip on the bottom of them. Blue strip. That one's actually unblurred. That is just straight up the plate. There's also no front, which you didn't see in that. Something I should say is no front plates are British Columbian, Manitoban, Ontario, and New Brunswick. So if you don't see front plates, I would avoid those states, those provinces. But yeah, we are in Yukon because of this plate, and the only place that would look like this is the capital of Whitehorse. Okay, probably the most famous bit of Canadian thing is stop signs in every province except for Quebec and New Brunswick. But in Quebec, you have the word arrêt, which means stop in French. But France uses stop. The only place in the world that uses the French word of stop is Quebec. So, very easy thing to see. These red and green bollards I'll get to in a second, and we see for French there, but don't mind that. Seeing double yellow is actually kind of rare here, but very big very big mountains, obviously. Though it's not really the British Columbian type mountains. It looks a lot like it does, but this you can see a lot of exposed rock. And exposed rock is more of a Canadian shield type thing. So like, which Quebec has a lot of mountains. This area and this area have a lot of mountains as well. And these like red and green bollards are Quebec Quebec only. And then there's some French. Although green back of the sign is a British Columbian thing, but I wouldn't always rely on that. Okay, these dashed yellow lines you can see all over Canada, but usually it's like Alberta or like New Brunswick, and it's obviously not Alberta, so just go like New Brunswick, and it's like kind of like a sandy reddish dirt, so that also helps. Not the best hint, but New Brunswick's mostly just vibes, and you just gotta play more to understand it a bit better. Okay, and then this is the other exception to the stop rule. In New Brunswick, they have a big influence of both English and French. Like Quebec's pretty much only French, but New Brunswick balances them both. So on these signs, you get both stop and arrêt. And then on a lot of things to get both English and French language all around. Okay, and then in what looks to be Nova Scotia, we have the reddish, little dirt. So this like region pretty much. We do see some like hills and mountains in the back, which don't really make sense through Prince Edward Island or really New Brunswick. Nova Scotia does have some exceptions, so like this area, pretty mountainous. This area down here could be a bit hilly, but down here and well, not just down here, but most of these center roads, a lot of them, are Gen 2 coverage. The center roads in Nova Scotia, especially these ones around here. And with some like hills to the south, there are some hills. It's gonna be down here in Nova Scotia. Like this type of round, you can definitely see in other areas though. Snow coverage. You can see snow coverage in a decent bit of places. And we also have pretty big mountains to the west and just pretty much everywhere else around, but snow coverage is usually like Ontario and east. Not quite the Quebecy not quite the Quebecy mountains. We also have double yellow, which would pretty much completely rule out Quebec and New Brunswick. So it'd be Ontario or Nova Scotia, and there's a lot of snow coverage in both. But it's pretty hilly, and there's mountains, which you would see in here for Ontario. Not much snow coverage, so it'd be Nova Scotia. So I guess there would be in this area, because are there mountains west? Hopefully, y'all learned something about each province in Canada, and you can better guess yourself, and better learn how to actually region guess Canada better. Canada is it's a pretty hard country to region guess, especially in like the eastern states, but hopefully this helped. I'll see y'all next time.